Before we go to the next speaker, do members of council have any quick releases? Councillor Bradford, did you say you had a quick release?
If I can.
Okay.
Not yet,
Oh.
sorry.
Not yet?
Maybe within a half hour or so. Just
Okay.
give me a few minutes.
Okay, never mind.
Any quick releases? Councillor Moyes.
I don't have the item number, but it's amendment to bylaw 438-86 regarding 325 Gerard Street East, Regent Park phases 4 and 5.
Well, what item, well, what?
The list I have is not numbered. It's one of the last items that I sent earlier. Or yesterday, maybe.
What is it, new business?
Yes. something.
Oh, it's not a new business, it's members' motion.
Yeah, members' motion. Sorry. You find it?
Hold on. Do you know which number it was? I don't know what number it is, Councillor Moyes.
Okay, I'll see if my
You'll
staff
have to
knows.
tell me what
Do you know
it is.
Tyler?
Okay, our next speaker. Our next speaker is Councillor Myers.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have two amendments that I've pre-circulated that I'd like to put on the screen.
Okay, Councillor Myers, they have the amendment, so we'll put it on the screen. Okay, go ahead.
So the first amendment is just replacing the word direct, the City Council direct, with the word request the TTC board. And then the second amendment is that there be no net impact on the City of Toronto or the Toronto Transit Commission's budget to be completed by the fourth quarter of 2024. I support the principle of renaming civic assets after, not after Henry Dundas. I support that in principle. I just think it has to be done in a way that makes sense. The TTC is currently facing many financial difficulties, and I don't think it's fair to ask riders to pay for something that doesn't make a measurable improvement in their daily commutes. I think that there's a lot of good intentions behind this motion, and I think this is a good step forward for renaming Yonge Dundas Square and renaming the library. I think there are a lot of amazing Black Canadians who don't get the recognition that they deserve, and I think this is one small step in the right direction. But I think we should also be cognizant that when we do things, that there is a financial impact, and who bears that impact is just as important as what we're doing. So thank you.
Thank you. We do have some questions for you. Councillor Holliday, 3 minutes, clarification of the motion.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Councillor Myers. I appreciate the logic that you've laid out here with respect to riders having to bear the costs. I'm just intrigued. It's because, and I wondered if you could explain why you've treated the Dundas Station differently from the Dundas West Station, which seems to be still paid for by the TTC under the capital plan?
So with respect to 3A, 3A appears, I found out that 3A is a naming deal in all but name, pun intended. Thank you. And 3B does not actually have a name. So if they were to name that after not an institution, I think that's a different conversation, whereas here, there is a naming deal on the page, and I don't think if we're renaming an asset after an institution, that it's fair that riders should be bearing that cost. Riders expect their TTC fares to go to improving their TTC service.
But but the intention of the motion is to be okay with TTC paying the cost of Dundas West.
No, I didn't make I didn't make any amendments to Dundas West because, as I understand, that is still in consultation as to what the name would be.
Okay, so would you acknowledge, though, that the Dundas West Station is, as the motion is written, to be paid for by riders?
I acknowledge that it is as written, it is to be paid for by riders. But that was not the intent of the motion because I don't know what the name will be. So if the name is after, for example, a historic Black Canadian, I think that's a different conversation than naming it after an institution.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Candeval, a clarification of the motion, 3 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. To the mover, I wanted greater clarification because on initial read, it's similar to Councillor Moises' thing, but here I look at the language and I wanted clarity on working in collaboration. So does that allow a different end result, potentially?
Thing here is that when the city council does not have the power to direct the TTC to take certain action, we can only request. So of course the TTC board would want to work in collaboration with anybody that is proposing to rename the name of a TTC station. We'd want to work collaboratively, not with just the proponent, but also with the city itself. So yes.
Thank you. And for greater clarity, is part of your rationale for this motion is that there may exist a possibility to increase the TDC's budget through a process that's more thought out and may result in greater financial contributions towards the TDC budget as a result of this?
So we have not had a budget discussion at the TTC yet, so I am not aware where this money is proposed to come from. So all I would like to know is that that this does not have an impact on the TTC's budget as it relates to, our operating costs, which are under pressure already.
Mm-hmm. Can you please elaborate and give clarity as to your concern about the TDC budget?
So the TTC has a quite significant state of good repair backlog. We have a rising number of operating costs, particularly as obviously the new deal will help, but as we get Line 3 on board, as we deal with issues of safety, security, our ridership levels are not yet back to the state they were pre-COVID. So we have a lot of operating costs, and we want to make sure that when we're spending money, we're doing it in a strategic way, which is to bring riders back.
Okay, thank you. So for that, and as part of that clarity, the rationale for this motion is that there is the potential for greater positive impact for the TDC budget as you're the TDC commissioner?
So what this motion is trying to make clear is that the money to rename the station should not be coming out of the TTC's budget. The TTC's budget should be focused on making sure that the transit system is moving people efficiently.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Carroll, 3 minutes, clarification of the motion.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. And if you'll indulge me, in terms of this is an amendment of the original motion, and so I'm able to ask the mover about that. But I want to ask the mover of this amendment, your main purpose in moving this amendment is to make sure we're request, not direct. But just to clarify, it isn't, you're saying you don't want to be funding it, but in fact, the motion's not really prescriptive. So there's nothing in this motion, in your view, I hope, that precludes the TTC as long as, what it does prescribe is that they work with EDC, that they work with the Community Advisory Committee. Yep. Since that has been an honorable and successful type of process, it prescribes that you work with that, but it doesn't preclude looking for other sources of funding. You could end up with the same outcome that we have happening at the downtown station. The TTC could in fact entertain other forms of funding other than coming out of the ridership pocket.
Yes, so we're just not sure what those other sources of funding would actually be because the city does not actually have a naming rights policy.
Right.
So
we're just asking you to begin that contemplation, and we're asking you to try and make haste so that the Community Advisory Committee doesn't have to stick around for the whole 10-year capital plan. It could perhaps help with the process by 2025.
Yes, and we're also making sure that we're just setting the framework in place that the money that's going to come to rename the station doesn't come from the city's budget, it doesn't come from the TTC's budget.
Well, that's I think why we're asking questions of clarification, Madam Speaker, so that there is no impact on the city's budget or the TTC's budget. But if, for instance, the capital plan had state of good repair work that was going to be done in that station anyway, there's any number of ways in which there could be a mitigation to the cost of this.
Yes,
and
exactly.
We're not prescribing that today. We're allowing you to do that process through your own TTC budget process.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, you turned your mic on.
Sorry,
Okay.
bad habit.
Councillor McKelvey, 3
Similar
minutes.
questions, I think, to Councillor Carroll. You're outlining for Dundas for 2024, but is there still time next year to do the similar process for 2025? So maybe Dundas West also goes through a similar process and it's not funded by TTC? Maybe the name that's identified similarly is with a partner of some sort? So just leaving it open that we can still deal with that?
Yes, that's my hope. Again, that would be based on sort of the conversation I was having with Pat in terms of like what other frameworks are out there in order to get the result that we all want, but making sure that it doesn't necessarily come out of the TTC's budget or the city's budget.
So ultimately, the 2025 work you also would like to see proceed in the same way as 2024, not out of the TTC budget?
Yes, I mean, if we could find a good precedent for 2024, that could be applied for 2025.
Okay, great. Thank you for your work on this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker is Councillor Morley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I wanted to rise tonight, to thank my colleague, Councillor Moyes, for his work on this, along with members of the advisory who have been working diligently over many, many months and years to help us as a city work on confronting anti-Black racism. I really appreciate, additionally, the title of this particular motion because I think it speaks to the impetus of anti-Black racism, which was in fact the transatlantic slave trade, and we know that anti-Black racism was used as a tool to keep communities, to basically treat other human beings in an inhumane way. And we have not had yet, I think, an appropriate level of discussion, review, and reflection of that true history, nor have we held enough space or shown enough recognition and validation to folks when they've come forward with their desire to see us do better and move forward in a better way. I really also appreciate the name that was selected. I think there's a lot of important meaning there and a lot of important sentiment lessons that we need to be applying to our current reality as we continue to build a better future. Those are my comments here today. I also just wanted to highlight, as a fun fact, not so fun, the last name Morley actually belonged to somebody who used to buy and sell people. It is not something that, you know, I chose for myself, and certainly I can directly draw my own familial history to this transatlantic slave trade. There are real harms and real impacts that this practice over 400 years had on real people that continue to impact our communities to this day. We saw today the Ontario Human Rights Commission release a report related to how Black people are treated in our communities, and this is yet one of another long list of examinations of the lack of balance in our society as it relates to equity-deserving people. So as we continue this important debate and this important discussion, I think we need to be mindful of the importance of our slogan in our arms, which is diversity, our strength. And in order to ensure we're standing in the light as it relates to that, these are the important pieces of work I believe we need to continue to commit ourselves to and move forward. Those are my comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councillor Fletcher to speak. Councillor Candeval to speak.
Councillor Fletcher is before me.
She's not here.
Okay. I should have known. Can't miss Councillor Fletcher. I rise to share my perspective, which is rooted in complexity, as well as when the same important conversation in 2020 rightfully arose in circles all over the world, and including at the Toronto District School Board. The approach we took towards the question on renaming differed from how the City of Toronto did. We had the same conversation, same intensity and reflection on harm caused over many centuries on Black and, of course, other racialized communities, including our Indigenous the Indigenous peoples of Canada. And the route we took, which I think will lend critical reflection to how we proceed, is we chose not to rename Ryerson, Dundas, McDonald, Churchill. We invested $2 million. When I was on the floor, and Trustee Moyes, former Trustee Moyes will remember, I moved the motion to double our investment from $1 million to $2 million in the Center for Excellence for Black students. And if you go to this website, you'll see the mandate. It's the TDSB's response to dismantle anti-Black racism within the school board and improve experiences and outcomes for Black students. The creation of the center is responsive to the voices of Black communities who consistently advocated for deeper systemic change. My concern is that as a city, as an important public institution, as an outsider, and now as a councillor, I'm not seeing the impacts and efforts to actually make deeper systemic change. Some will call this performative, and it's in that context I welcome the City School Board Exploratory Committee to share the learnings of other institutions. My concern for the expenditure comes from the need for a more thoughtful process that looks at the potential of money that could be brought to our city to further positive experiences and deeper systemic change. When this issue came up in my ward last year and this year, I consistently heard from Black communities, Black families, that our community centers either A, don't exist, their center ice hockey, which is not accessible for so many families, they don't see their investments by the City of Toronto to impact positive experiences outcome for Black youth. Last year, we saw one of the most tragic years in Toronto District School Board. Many of you longtime Toronto watchers will remember in 2007, we experienced the first homicide of a student in the TDSB, Jordan Manners, and we saw the rightful indignation and outcry from the Premier to the Mayor and representatives across our city, and generated considerable investments, the Roots of Violence report that came out. And then for 15 years, we didn't see another homicide. And on Valentine's Day, a day of love, we saw a young Black student shot and killed, David Mary Thompson. That same year on Halloween Day, a day of fear, we saw at Winston Churchill, a boy, young Black boy shot and killed. We didn't see the outcry from any of the existing governments. We didn't see the same attention the Jordan Manners homicide brought. We didn't see the same investments from either administration or the prioritization of actual Black spaces in our city to place a deeper emphasis on systemic change. So, yes, words matter, names matter, they have to be addressed. But when it's not coupled with actual investment into systemic change, this is what's called performative politics. So that's the concern I have, and I hope this resonates the needed investment by our budgetary process to change the lived realities and outcomes. We have the data of where our Black families live, and we need to track that data with the data coming out of our budget process into where we're investing in communities and families, and I'll stop at that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Sachs.
Yes, thank you very much. I do want to start by thanking the members of the committee for all the work that they've done. Certainly, we know that there is anti-Black racism that needs attention. My concern, however, with this motion is about process. Proper process is essential for government decisions to have legitimacy, and no proper process has been followed in this case. There is no reason has been given why this motion was brought without notice. From what we've heard, the committee process has been on for 18 months. We've heard nothing that's changed that's of any materiality, that this couldn't have been brought by the agenda deadline or couldn't be brought at the next meeting so that members of the public can have a say. As Councillor Robinson already pointed out, the public were promised a chance to have input. Dundas Street is in my ward, and I can tell you I have received hundreds and hundreds of emails from constituents who care deeply about what we do on this issue. And I can tell you that most of them argue that we should be focusing, if we can spare scarce public resources, we should be helping people living today. Yes, the transatlantic slave trade, although very little of it happened in Toronto, it was a terrible tragedy and atrocity, as there have been others as well. But there are Black people living today who need help. So is it the right decision in order to make Black people feel more welcome and help them succeed here? Just if we have public money, because and university money is also public money, is the right thing to do to spend that on renaming a station? Or is the right thing to do to create scholarships and other kinds of assistance for those students? So seems to me that we have three inappropriate things that we're being asked to do without notice in a rush tonight. And the central one is that it's, first of all, we're excluding the public. As Councillor Holyday pointed out, there's no communications. Well, that's because nobody knew this was coming. the Dundas station is partly in my ward. I was not consulted. None of my business improvement associations were consulted. None of my residents associations were consulted. There was no public consultation, and there are many people passionately interested in this. The second thing is it's not appropriate for this council to be dictating to the TTC Commission how they should manage TTC assets. The TTC Commission has a very difficult job managing an essential part of the city's public service amid competing demands. Yes, of course, this would be something that would give pleasure and comfort to a part of our community. But the Black community is among the people who most need the TTC to operate well and have good service and have our facilities in a state of good repair. And to divert money from TTC service and good repair to renaming a station, well, I certainly don't have any indication that my constituents want that, would support it. Every indication I have is that they don't. And the third part of this is we are right now in the middle of a very difficult budget process. And it is, in my view, completely inappropriate to come to this council, especially without notice, and demand that we approve an expenditure now before we do the critical work of budgeting, which is about trade-offs. Councillor Moyes said this is the right thing to do. This is, of course, a good cause. No one is denying that. But every single thing we spend money on is a good cause. And every single one of us have urgent public priorities that we think are a crisis and absolutely deserve attention. And that is precisely the process of trade-offs that the budget is about. And the budget's going to be finished within the next 2 months. No rationale has been given why we should be trying to short-circuit that process. So I support Councillor Meyer's motion. I think that out of respect to the TTC, this should go as a request to the TTC board and not as an order. And also, we can't give them an order to do something that's going to cost a lot of money without any assurance that that money is going to be provided, or any public conversation as to whether this is the right use of that money.
5 seconds.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor McKelvey to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I just have a minor amendment on item 2, just to make sure that the local councillors are also worked with on this process, as they may have community members that should be engaged that they can suggest. I really want to thank Councillor Moyes and Mayor Chow for their hard work in bringing this item forward today. The motion before us is thoughtful, it's balanced, it is a compromise, it recognizes the people of the past, the people of today, the needs of tomorrow, and I'd really like to thank the Recognition Review Community Advisory Committee and the Anti-Black Racism Committee for all of their really hard work that brought us to the point where it is at today. I'll just end by saying that I fully support this, and I absolutely love the new name for Dundas Square, and I think we should all really embrace it, and not just embrace it as a name, Sankofi Square, but also just embrace it as a way of life. And it's defined as reflecting on and reclaiming teachings from the past and moving forward together. And I think it's something that we committed to with reconciliation, and we see that every day by seeing the teapot that's here as a reminder. And so walking by the square and seeing its new name will be a reminder to us as well. So I'm hopeful we'll all come together in a good way to move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Robinson.
Thank you very much. Is my voice a good level? Too loud?
It's much better, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So firstly, I want to thank the committee that did all the legwork here. Clearly, it was a lot of time committed to the process, but my issue is with the process. I also want to thank Councillor Myers for correcting, as I asked earlier this morning, to request not direct, because it's a separate body, the commission, and I think we should always remember that. But this process has not been honored, because go to the city's website right now and check it. It clearly says there that a number of names will be identified and there will be public consultation. So I think the committee did great work, I don't think they decided. Certainly on Twitter, it's saying that they did not decide to go this route. Somebody else has, I don't know, but I feel a little bit blindsided by this. Young Dundas Square is a destination. Like Toronto Botanical Gardens is a destination in my ward. And we all share these big destinations in the city, and we should all have a say. So I'm very concerned. I mean, Toronto was built on public consultation. It's a building block in every process that we undertake. So I won't be supporting this today in its current form. I can't. Even though the name that's being proposed is really got a great background and it sounds really cool. But like, it's a great name. I think it's a great solid name, but I don't think the process leading up to this has been honored. So I'm very concerned that we're once again feeling a little bit uberish here in ramrodding this, today. Does the committee know what's at committee? It was approved or discussed 2 days ago. So do they even know it's before us? I don't know. But there's a lot of holes in this, in my opinion. I think this was an opportunity for a revenue stream that could have helped the Bloc community and kind of rise up through some of the challenges they face. And I just think it's really unfortunate that this has come in the form of a member's motion, not a staff report. I mean, staff reports can be written very quickly if we need them to be. So I'm a bit baffled here by one, not honoring the process that's laid out on our own city's website, not doing the public consultation chunk, which was, that you heard city staff say that was not done. And not really, I don't know. I think there was more opportunity here, whether it was partnerships, sponsorships, patrons, naming rights. I think there was a huge opportunity here for a revenue stream and to make more dollars flow into our coffers. Not that it's all about money, but you can't just give something away. I mean, I know of sponsorship deals for $1 million for one annual event, not a lifetime, a whole legacy of decades. So, and I didn't get a clear answer, but it sounds like it's forever. So I'm also concerned about one more thing, and that is, does the committee know and understand, and the name, that there's going to be sponsors all over Young Dundas Square, which is being renamed, I guess. I'm not voting for it today, but maybe down the road I'll support it if the public process is followed. But there's going to be, Tide and Scotiabank on the stage. It's going to be on signage. It's going to be on the concrete barriers. Does everybody realize? Is everybody aware that that's going to be on the stage? Because that's how people fund their events, through revenues, through sponsorships. So I just don't know if all the work's been done and that everybody knows, hey, there's going to be lots of sponsorships here, corporate agents and corporate sponsors. I had a million more questions I couldn't ask because I got to the 5 minutes. So I just feel like this isn't good decision making, and our residents should know this is happening, not hear about it in the news tomorrow, because they should have had an opportunity if they wanted. And like Councillor Holladay and Councillor Sachs, I've had hundreds of emails about this over the last little while. Whenever we started debating this, they never stopped coming in.
5
so
seconds.
I think it's really important we do that piece of the puzzle, and then I can get my head around supporting it. But I do want to again thank the committee for their hard work. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Before we continue, I just wanted to say that the city clerk has advised me that the general manager of Economic Development Culture has submitted the summary of the shortlisted names, and it has been posted as a communication on the item. Councillor Carroll.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. And on that list, I read it, and on that list is the name chosen, Sankofa. Sankofa. Sankofa, I think that in an attempt for brevity, I think the short list does a passable job of defining what that word means. But I have some sources. I'm related to some sources. So I asked those people in my family that are Ghanaian, is this a good name? Is this a good word? And they stopped short of the definition. There's a nuance to it. It's not just go backwards, pick up your history so that we can move forward. The real definition, if you really put in the nuance, is it's okay. It's okay to go back and pick up the history that you forgot. If bringing it forward means that we can all move forward together, it's okay to do that. And that nuance is important. It comes from a culture where there was a constant drive to just go forward, go forward, go forward, because the past was so painful. There was just always a culture of drive forward. Let's get better, let's drive forward. But we're sitting in this room demonstrating that if you leave behind the painful history that you forgot, that you can't quite go forward with the amount of respect and unity that you need to go forward together. That's why that is an amazing name. It's a beautiful name. And because they're here in this room, and some of our members aren't aware of that, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for choosing it. It's my understanding that while we had to sit through not one but two committees where we had to listen to dozens and dozens and dozens of deputations from the community about this, and then we had to deliberate, almost as long as we're deliberating now, to come up with the idea of saying, maybe we can't do this. Maybe a community advisory committee has to do this for us. We went through all of those processes, and then we needed them to work for 18 months and do their work in the community to get here. I think we've demonstrated that there's been plenty of process, but that what we've demonstrated is that it's best if they do it. Because it wasn't about politics for them. It was about what the problem is. That we heard from the community, dozens and dozens and dozens of people, we've already heard it. Through months and months of process, through opportunities. Our former mayor, who was the presiding chair over executive at the time, spoke of it this morning on air. Had that opportunity. And this is the moment. Sankofa. It's okay to go back and pick up the important history you forgot. Bring it forward together and then move forward together. And that means tonight you need to make a decision that we're moving forward with this now, that they have done the work that needed to be done, and we're going to honor it, and we're going to move forward. And God love them, they have agreed unanimously. They achieved consensus in one night to do it in a way that, thank God, we can actually afford. We can afford with the recommendations in front of us. It's not even a financial struggle to do it if we do it the way they've recommended. Do it tonight. Sankofa.
Thank you. No applause, please. You have to wave your hands. Those are the rules. Councillor Cole.
With all due respect, I heard Councillor Holyday talk about Henry Dundas. Talk about revisionist history. This guy was a disgusting human being.
Okay, hold on. Do you have a motion?
Yeah, where's my motion? Anyways, Henry Dundas. Anyways, I'm moving that council request confronting anti-black racism advisory committee to include, among other candidates, as part of any future consultation, to consider the honoring naming of the city of Toronto as like in Dundas. First, Dudley Laws, an incredible hero, incredible, brave, courageous person who fought against the residual effects of slavery in the streets of Toronto. Dudley Laws should be included in future consideration. Secondly, Charlie Roach, another incredible man with integrity, courage, who fought in the streets of Toronto, in the courts of Toronto, to try and ensure that the remnants of slavery didn't continue to haunt the people of Toronto who happen to be black or other visible minorities. So we got to include, I could not sleep tonight if I didn't stand up and honor these two great men that cannot be forgotten for what they did in modern Toronto to fight the remnants of slavery. So that's my motion. And I just want to get back to my friend Henry Dundas. They don't really tell you the whole story. Sure, he was in Parliament, you know, the uncrowned King of Scotland, but he was essentially the Prime Minister of England's William Pitt's hitman. He was the war admiral in charge of the colonies. When there was rebellion against slavery in Haiti, St. Vincent, in Jamaica, who did Pitt send to quell the rebellion? He sent his friend Henry Dundas, who slaughtered, butchered, enslaved even more, because they broke away in Haiti, they broke away from slavery. Well, the English sent in Dundas and the British Army, 20,000 British troops to slaughter everybody in Haiti. And you wonder why Haiti's still suffering poverty? Well, you know what happened to Haiti? The British government under Sir Henry Dundas made the Haitians pay reparations to the slave owners. Can you believe? No, it's the English. They came in there and made the poor Haitian people who broke away with the first black free state in the Americas, they made them pay reparations to their slave owners when they broke away. The guy who orchestrated this was Sir Henry Dundas. And they say, oh, well, in Parliament, he talked with Wilberforce and all that. Well, the fact is, he was the butcher that Pitt sent to basically put down all those rebellions of people trying to break free from slavery. And people forget. They say, oh, well, slavery was awful then. It went on for 400 years. I use the F word myself, but 400 years it went on. The churches, the great scholars, they all stood by and let it happen. As I think Councillor Moy said, over 1.5 million black Africans drowned or were thrown overboard. If there was any bad weather, they threw them overboard before they got here, and then what kind of a life did they have here? And that went on for 400 years, and so sure, there's an inconvenience here. And the people will say, oh, yeah, but you got money to do this, and you don't have money for the city's broke. And listen, once in a while, you got to take a stand and say, what would you have done if you were there at that time when there was slavery? Would you have cowered and got along with Henry Dundas and his butchers? Or would you have said that's wrong? So now's our chance to say that's wrong. It's not a perfect motion or a series of motions, but at least an attempt to right a wrong that still impacts people of color all over the world. You know, just take a trip in the United States. Take a trip to some of these countries that still are suffering from 400 years of hell. So this is our chance to say
5 seconds.
That was wrong then, and we are at least trying to do something now to rectify that.
Thank you. Okay, I've got Councillor Holliday's name on it. Oh, there it is. You're on now. Councillor Holliday, 3 minutes clarification of the motion.
I think it's an easy one. The motion mentions other assets in the Dundas renaming process. Can the councillor expand to what those are?
Well, I was thinking just of the Dundas West Station, what the future name there, what the library at Young and Jane and Dundas is. Those are the two I thought of.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
I'm asking you a
Oh,
question now,
sorry.
Counselor. How do you know those two names aren't on the list already, Counselor?
Well, I just wanted to make sure. I knew we asked about Dudley, and they said he wasn't on. So that's why I said Dudley, and then I thought of Charlie. And I said, so let's make sure they're on.
I see. So that's instructions to Mr.
And the committee to
Tobin and the
consider this
committee
as they
that
move
council would
forward.
like
that-
to make sure that these names are on. And I would happily agree with that, as we discussed earlier. Thank you for your motion.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just got here. Where are they?
Thank you, Speaker, and I'm very pleased to see Councillor Cole's motion. About 30 years ago, I got a chance to work and be in meetings with Dudley Laws, and when we were organizing against racist, white supremacist violence in Toronto, and I got to be in meetings with Charlie Roach, and actually, when I ran in 2003, the first letter of endorsement I got was from Charlie Roach. So these people mean a lot to us, the people that grew up in the city, wanting to see fundamental, substantive changes to make sure that people were treated equally and fairly before the law, that there would be an access to every aspect of life that people deserve, free of discrimination. And anti-Black racism has run so deep in this society that we all have to fight it together. I also want to say around the question of Sankofa that it is a beautiful, beautiful idea to use a word that comes from Ghana. I had the privilege of being invited to a conference in Accra, and I went to the door of no return. There is nothing that is more devastating than walking through the process of seeing on that pier where slaves passed. The door of no return meant that once you boarded a ship, you were never coming back. And to say that this is a disaster among other things, that the transatlantic slave trade is a disaster among other events in human history, I think does not do justice to the scale of what was done here. Because millions of people died before they even reached the coast. And then millions more died crossing on those ships. And then millions more died. They were working 20 hours a day, and for some, the lifespan was very short, less than 4 years. And so that is something that's in Canada, because we have had slavery in Canada, because everything that the transatlantic slave trade taught this society, Western society, has been destructive, has been harmful about the place that African people have in the world. And that is reflected in every other community. I am Latin American, but I fight against anti-Black racism because I know that if the world is better for Black people in Toronto, it's going to be better for me. It's going to be better for all of us. So I really want to thank the mover of the motion, Councillor Moyes. I'll be supporting Councillor Myers and Councillor McKelvey, and of course, Councillor Cole's motions. You may not think this is a perfect process, but it sounds to me like a great number of people have given a lot of their time to think thoughtfully about where to go next with this, and I thank you all for doing that work.
Thank you. Okay, the last speaker, Mayor Chow.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. First, I want to thank Councillor Moyes for his leadership. But especially for the chair of the CAC's co-chairs, Elder Catherine Tamaro and Dr. Melanie Newton. It's their work through 2 years. 2 years. How many meetings would that be, right? Undertaking, like with 20 other board members. Who are these board members? They are academia. They are our staff. They're head of BIA for Young Dundas. They came to a consensus. It wasn't just someone picked something and said, go for it. And it took that many meetings. And they were very dedicated. And it's been a long journey to get us here, starting in the wake of the murder of George Floyd. 14,000 people signed a petition calling for Toronto to reconcile with our history of honoring Henry Dundas, perpetrator of the transatlantic slave trade. Some of you might say, well, well, maybe he was supportive, but he wasn't. Maybe he delayed it. And perhaps some academia say, but I went and actually read in the House of Commons what he said during that time. You know why he wanted to delay? He wanted to delay the ending of slavery because there's not enough workers in the plantations. What is his solution? Why don't we bring some young boys and girls, 14 women, 16 young boys, away from their family, take them here, to Europe, to other places, US, and have them procreate so that there'll be lots of workers for the plantation. My God, that's horrific, right? And at that time, it was passed. But thank God the upper house thought better of it and did not go ahead with it. He suggested something younger. And then when it went to the House, they added 2 more years. I can go into the gory details, but it was just, it was amazing reading that kind of history. It's heartbreaking. And of course, there's been extensive debate, some difficult conversations, and direction from City Council before I became a mayor. But ultimately, we are charting a path forward, one that addressed the community concerns regarding Dundas' name and legacy, while advancing city's deep commitment to the confronting anti-Black racism. I'm honored to speak about this new name, and they are the ones, this committee that met for 2 years, they are the ones that picked. They recommended that it shall now be known as Sankofa Square. The concept of Sankofa originated in Ghana. It refers to the act of reflection on and reclaiming teachings from the past, enabling us to move forward together. It's just beautiful. And I couldn't think of a more fitting name for a gathering place at the heart of our city. A place where different cultures meet, celebrate, and make real the promise of our city as a global beacon of hope. A place where everyone feels they belong. And a place where we see each other, learn from one another, learn from our past, and move forward together. Now, building a city where everyone belongs isn't always easy, but in a moment like this, and the process we've undertaken to get here, that made it real. I heard some conversation there wasn't much of a process. How could it be not much of a process? We went through 2 years of meeting. What other things I've noticed is a lot of the recommendations made the original motion so much better. Requesting TDC, not demanding. Consulting the local councillors in the libraries, because the Madam Chair was very involved in that local library when she was the mayor in the area. So of course, there needs to be a lot more conversation. And I'm sure there will be. TDC will engage in that. The Toronto Public Library Board are still looking for a name, and they will engage local folks. Today is just the beginning of a journey. And the key one is the Young Dundas Square. And this whole phase, the planned approach, is spanned 2 years, 2024, 25. And given its significance, the Sankofa Square will be named first. And thank you for, Councillor Moyes, thank you for, and the Community Advisory Committee for meeting only just a few days ago, I believe, where you worked late to the night. Was it very late to the night? I don't know. You worked hard for many hours to finally come up with a name. And it's worthy of celebration. So thank you so much. And the staff was with them every step of the way. So I believe that is a pretty good process. And of course, local councillors, Councillor Sachs, and all the other councillors that want to be involved, there are many opportunities for you to do so. So I hope we can get a good support in this council and move ahead on this renaming.
So if we can put the motions on the screen. Okay, motion by Councillor Holliday, recorded vote. Huh? There is no split. If you read it, it's just deleting. It's just one item, Councillor Cole.
Councillor Fletcher, your vote, please. The motion does not carry. The vote is 5-16.
Okay, next motion. By Councillor Myers. Recorded vote.
The motion carries. The vote is 20-1.
Okay, next motion. By Councillor McKelvey. On favor? Carried.
Point of order, Madam Speaker. On the main motion,
Okay, please don't put your mic on. Okay. Like, no, it's not just, everybody's doing the same thing. Okay, point of order, Councillor Penderville.
on the main motion, are there going to be independent votes on each item?
If you ask for it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. On Councillor Cole's motion. Recorded vote on Councillor Cole's motion.
The motion carries unanimously, 21 in favor.
One is that, but the next one is the main motion, correct? No, but I think that Councillor Candeval, you've asked that you vote on it separately?
Yes,
Each recommendation?
yes. I think there's 5 in total.
Or is there a specific one that you want to vote?
I think there's contextual differences with each one.
Okay.
Madam Speaker, could you just hang on 1 second so we can separate those and get ready for
Okay.
that? Okay, this is the vote on part 1, Madam Speaker. Councillor Chang, thank you. Councillor Candeval, please. And thank you. Part 1 of the item as amended carries. The vote is 19-2.
Okay, on part 2 would be as amended, because we amended part 2. You want a recorded vote on that one too? No. Pardon? Councillor, you want a recorded vote on 2 as well?
I didn't realize calling for a separate vote implied recorded vote
Yeah.
as well. Okay, no, I'm not calling, no. Okay. I just wanted them to be separate votes. My intention was not for recording.
Well, it's a recorded vote when you ask for a separate vote. Well,
So no, I'm not asking.
okay. On number 2, all in favor? Carried.
Recorded vote,
Recorded vote on 2?
absolutely.
Madam Speaker, just a reminder that this is part 2 as amended.
Yes. This is part 2 as amended to include the 2 local councillors, was amended.
Part 2 as amended of the item as amended carries. The vote is 19-2.
So now it's part 3 as amended. All in favor?
Recorded vote,
Recorded vote. We should have just voted on the whole thing as a recorded vote, rather than go through it. Because it's the same vote.
Stand by, members. Just stand by, please, members.
I just want to remind members of council we're coming back tomorrow, and it's only to 3:30. We have to recess at 3:30. So if we want to complete the agenda, I would suggest we don't have lunch.
Speaker, I can't see what part is being shown.
Nothing's been shown yet. Okay, it's there now. And this is as amended.
Councillor Candival, please. Just a reminder, members, as well, if you can't see what you think you should be seeing, then a refresh of the browser screen will sometimes cure that. Part 3 is amended, of the item is amended, carries. The vote is 17-4.
Part 4. Do we need a recorded vote on 4 as well? No? Okay, on favor, carried. Part 5, on favor, carried. That's it, right? Okay. Okay, members, a couple things. First of all, what I'm going to ask, and Councillor Holyday, if you don't mind, you've held down EC 8.8, Toronto Fire Services 2022 Annual Report. We've had the fire chief sit in here for the last 2 days. I'm sure there's better things that he can do than just sit in the council chambers. Can we deal with that item next? Councillor Holyday?
Speaker?
Yes?
Yeah, Speaker, I'm willing to do questions, but I have a motion I'm working on, so if we can hold down the final vote on it, but, you know, we can certainly do the question period.
Okay. So we get the chief. Now, before we do that, Councillor Bradford indicated there's he has some quick releases. So Councillor Bradford?
Wasting his time in here for 2 days?
Councillor Bradford?
For 2 days, why wasn't he doing this?
Councillor Cole, please.
I'm thinking of the fire chief sitting here for
But
2
he
days.
is. We're going to get to his item next.
2 days.
Wow. Okay. Councillor Bradford, what item are you releasing? Okay. Councillor Bradford?
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Quick release on PH 8.7. This is with an amendment here, and it's just a motion worked on with staff here to undertake continued consultation with Build and city staff to align on a approach to communicate with the Minister of Municipal Affairs to help us get some better outcomes for the city on Bill 109.
Okay, so we have the amendment by Councillor Bradford on PH 8.7. On favor, carried. Item is amended. On favor, carried. Are there any further quick releases? The names that are on the screen, it's an old thing. Okay. Councillor Fletcher.
Release things here, Speaker.
Councillor Fletcher.
I'm going to release, I'm holding the, sorry, my apologies, I believe, I'm holding a PH 8.5, and I did send a motion to clerks. It's a city-initiated zoning bylaw amendments to implement the Ontario Line final report, further consideration of various properties. It's a deferral motion to February.
Okay, if I can have some order in the council chambers, please. Okay, Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, there it is there.
Oh, Councillor Fletcher, your motion's not ready yet.
Oh, I'd sent it in to center table.
Okay.
Deferral to February.
Okay, so let's just hold it down. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Maybe that other motion will come up shortly too. Thanks.
Yeah.
MM 13.15, 413 the Kingsway, request for city solicitor to attend at the local appeal body by Councillor Holladay and Councillor Crisanti. I will release that, but noting that I'd like a recorded vote on that, because often certain councillor doesn't vote for the TLAC.
Okay, so Councillor Fletcher is releasing MM 13.15, 413 the Kingsway, and asks for a recorded vote. Yes, recorded vote. Order, please. Councillor Bradford, we're in the middle of a vote. Can you come down, please?
Councillor Bradford, are you able to vote? Thank you. Deputy Mayor Malik, thank you. Councillor Campbell, please. Councillor Pasternak, how do you vote?
In the affirmative.
Speaker, on a point of privilege, I think the great and powerful Oz is somewhere in the room. I couldn't hear a thing.
The motion carries. The vote is 12-7.
Now, if we can ask the fire chief, where is he? Oh, there you are. Hi. We'll start asking questions on that. But before we do that, I just want to make a few comments so members of council are aware. So as you know, earlier in the meeting, that I had to remove Councillor Perruzza from the balance of today's session as permitted by the council procedures. The clerk has advised me that after Councillor Perruzza left the meeting, the clerk received votes remotely from the member on 2 votes related to NY 9.4, and they were reported in the results of the votes, which shouldn't have happened because we did remove him. So after consultation with me, the clerk would delete these votes from the records as the votes were counted in error, and the deletion of these votes does not change the results of those votes. I'm making this announcement for the record, and it will be recorded in the minutes of the meeting. All right? Okay. All right, so EC 8.8, Toronto Fire Services. Councillor Holiday, you held the item down. Do you have questions?
I do,
Councillor,
Speaker, thank you.
okay, if you can put your name on the screen, please.
I shall.
Okay, there
And
you
My
are.
questions are to the chief if he's available,
Yes.
or a representative from Toronto Fire Services if they're available.
No, the chief has been here for 2 days. The chief is here.
Thank you, and thank you to the chief. Chief, that was an excellent report, and in particular are the maps at the back of the report, which provide a lot of insight into how the Toronto Fire Services performs across the city geography. Can you tell me a little bit about the one map that talks about, and I'm going by memory, about the vehicle response time? Can you explain how that's measured and what the map tells us?
Madam Speaker, absolutely. So we assess our emergency response time performance using two criteria. The first is an aggregate that we define as total response time. That is the elapsed time between the time that our communication center receives the call in the 911 center and ends. So it is call processing time, what we call turnout time, the amount of time that the crews need to get ready and assemble and get on the truck, and then the travel time of the first truck to the scene. So total response time is the arrival time of the first truck to that emergency scene. Effective response force or effective firefighting force is the total elapsed time for all of the trucks, so the equipment and the personnel that we need to deal with that particular incident. So two different metrics, Councillor.
Okay, so for the benefit of my colleagues who may not have the report in front of them, I'm looking at the map of the city. And what it shows me is the suburbs, Etobicoke, the upper edge of North York, all of Scarborough are red. The inner city, or the mid-city, is yellow, and then the downtown core is green. Do I understand that to basically say response times in the suburbs or the outer edge of the city is very poor, the middle of the city average, and then downtown you're meeting your benchmarks? Is that an approximation okay?
Madam Speaker, I would just, with one amendment, Councillor, I would caution you against referring to the response times as being poor. So you are correct that our highest response time performance in the city happens in the downtown core. The reason for that is the downtown core of Toronto represents the highest distribution of our emergency resources in the city. As you move outward into the suburbs and certainly around all of the perimeter, the border areas of the city, because we are only able to respond to incidents in those wards, in essence, from 180 degrees and not 360 degrees, the response time performance is lower than it is in downtown Toronto. But important to note, Madam Speaker, the City of Toronto, the response time performance and the fire protection performance levels that are provided in this city are literally world-class.
Are they trending better or sorry, I should say higher or lower in terms of meeting the benchmark?
Madam Speaker, our response time performance over the past couple of years is trending longer. So I guess to use your vernacular, Councillor, longer, yes.
To what extent does traffic congestion and ability to move along the streets impact this performance? Because this is vehicle travel time, right?
Madam Speaker, travel time is one of the factors. So road congestion, traffic patterns, road closures, lane closures, all of those types of things are a factor. I will say that it is less significant of a factor for us than things like the availability of units. So we've seen an exponential increase, a 26% increase year over year in the number of emergency calls that we're responding to. That impacts the availability of crews. Therefore, trucks are traveling longer to get to incidents than they would if our call volume was lower.
Okay, but the definition of travel time is the elapsed time from when the first responding truck is responding to when that truck arrives at the incident location. Now, can you tell me, is there a process for Toronto Fire to weigh in on changes made to the transportation network? Whether it's the addition of speed humps or the installation of bike lanes where they remove traveled lanes, or cafe TO, or changes to parking, or all the sorts of things that change the dynamic on our streets. What is that input? Because I don't ever remember seeing or hearing about that at council. How do we find out more? How do we get the numbers, right? The data that shows how your units are performing?
Madam Speaker, so there is absolutely a connectivity between the Toronto Fire Services team and our colleagues in Transportation Services. Anytime there is a major capital works project that is being proposed or some kind of major construction or transportation event, we are consulted. I will say, Councillor, that the principal, our upfront engagement is more focused on identifying the impacts of that from a routing perspective, and then our crew's going to work to plan alternate routes around that restriction. The analytics work you're talking about, generally speaking, happens after the fact. That is a collaborative effort whereby our analytics team is feeding experienced impact data into our colleagues at Transportation
Okay, that was your
Services.
last question. You're way over time. Councillor Fletcher.
Speaker, can you let the chief answer?
Oh,
I mean, it wasn't me that you cut off.
All right, Councillor Holiday. Okay, do you want to finish?
Madam Speaker,
but Councillor Holiday, you were way over time.
The only part that got cut off, Councillor, is the analytics work. So the actual lived experience with respect to what the impact on our response time was is something that our analytics team calculates after the fact in a collaborative effort with our transportation team. So that information goes to transportation, and it informs really the continuous quality improvement efforts that are happening between the two organizations from a transportation planning perspective.
Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off. I meant to cut Holiday off because he was 6 minutes.
well, I hope you'll be as generous with me, Speaker.
Councillor Fletcher.
I have just some questions about the scope. As I understand it, Toronto Fire obviously attends fires, but you also attend overdoses, seniors' homes, shelter issues, anything of that nature. You're one of the first responders, correct?
Madam Speaker, correct. We are what we refer to as all hazards emergency response.
All hazards and emergencies. So when we look at this map, it kind of leaves the impression that people in the outer areas don't have fire protection. But would you agree that most of those visits, when you show the green, that you're going to an awful lot of calls of that nature where somebody's overdosed or you've got a problem at a shelter or so, that aren't the same conditions across the city, that there's special conditions that you attend in the south part of the city because of the number of social services, many of them that the city run. Would you agree with that?
Madam Speaker, I would agree.
So you wouldn't want to leave the impression that somehow fire's okay in Scarborough or Etobicoke, but not downtown. There are special conditions that aren't existing in those other locations. So you're happy that your response times for fire are consistent across the city, but you have an extra burden in the south end because of the amount of social services. If I put it like that, would you agree with it?
Madam Speaker, with one addition, Councillor. Yes. The disposition or the pre-positioning of resources in the downtown core is in direct response to the risk profile that exists with that population.
Thank you. So to not have an impression that somehow we're okay with fires in other places and that there may be fires. So that's why there's so many people. And then I'm just going to ask the Chief People Officer, because this is always an interesting question. I believe that Toronto Fire has a plan, a diversity plan, an inclusion plan for communities that don't have regular access, communities of color, LGBTQ, women. How do you, and I'm sure you work with them on that, I'd like you to benchmark where that's at this moment and what kind of improvements you would like to see, if any. Or maybe it's perfect.
Never perfect, always room for better. Right now, since January 2022, our class was at 46% of self-identified a member of an equity-deserving group. That was January 2022. July 2023, there were 44% of our new recruits were from equity-deserving groups.
So let me just stop you there, because how many were in the class, and how many actually self-identified?
And so in that class, I'll give you the first class of January 2022. There was 96 people in the class. 44 of that class identified as part of equity-deserving groups.
So 52 newly minted, they self-identified?
Self-identified.
So what about the 52 others? They just declined to identify. Is that correct?
They did not identify as equity-deserving groups, correct?
No, they didn't identify, or they didn't identify as equity-deserving groups. So you have to agree to identify.
Either or, Councillor, yeah.
Well, I'm very interested in the real numbers. So did all 96 say something, or did only 44 say something?
All 96 said something, 44 of which responded as equity-deserving groups.
And do you think that that's a good percentage given the history? I think if we look at the history of Toronto Fire, it's a place that has not had a strong diversity approach for many, many years.
I would say it's a dramatic improvement and still room to improve more.
And still room. And how is that improvement being taken place? The room for improvement.
I mean, our workforce equity groups and our recruitment groups and working with Toronto Fire are stepping into places like Toronto Community Housing, different environments to try to bring in new recruits and expose them to leaders in the firefighting world.
And how are we dealing with the fact that if you're a low-income person who's identifying from an equity-deserving group, you actually can't access all the courses, you can't access the tenure, you can't access the Z drivers, that there's an inequity around
Yes, and some of these courses are expensive
yes,
through
so how are
the
we
speaker.
dealing with that?
We are encouraging them through programs like OSAP and different things like that. We're also extending the time to have to recertify because it can be expensive, so that people have a little bit of a longer time to actually continue to apply for the roles.
So do you really think people in TCHC can afford to undertake any of these classes, or do they need special assistance?
Absolutely need special assistance.
And what's the plan for that from this city?
It's through OW or through OSAP at this juncture.
You have to be on OW in order to get help. But what about the many people that aren't, that are juggling many jobs?
Student assistant loans.
I'm sure, I don't think that's good enough, and I'll speak to it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Shelley?
Chair, thank you.
Well, I could have kept on because you weren't noticing.
I don't know, Councillor Cole was giving me some potatoes here, I don't know. And I went to grab it and found pieces, and he was yelling at me in Italian, just take one. And in Italian, I responded. Can't repeat it. Councillor Carroll, questions?
Thank you for recognizing me with your mouthful. So the map, as soon as I saw the map in the report, I thought, uh-oh, there's going to be questions, and sure enough, there were. But I'm wondering if you could unpack another map for me, because it's not just a matter of being an all-incident response. If we look at a map, at the time I looked at it, I thought, that's odd for that part of town, but maybe you could illuminate. The one that's, the map that is, it's just fire-based, the one that is about risk of residential loss from fire. I don't even know if it is paginated in our online version. I'm trying to look at the page that it's on. It is, it's on page 24 of the annual report. It is paginated. But when I look at that, and then I look later at the maps that look at what percentage are coming within the benchmark response time, this high-risk red area where we're having a lot of loss is where you're sending a lot of response. And so, these are fire incidents, not all incidents. So I'm wondering, is there a delta between, the risk? Once you've mapped this, that's why you're making sure that you have a strong response there?
Madam Speaker, the map that Councillor Carroll is referring to on page 24, that heat map represents the distribution of residential fires and only residential fires where there was a loss. Councillor, what I will draw your attention to, which I believe is, and if I'm incorrect, I apologize, but I believe what you're referring to, the key performance indicator with respect to the response to fire is best articulated on page 42 of the report, and that is what we define as effective firefighting force.
Right.
So that is the elapsed time that it takes us to put all of the personnel and all of the equipment on the scene to fight that fire, and that number of personnel and resources varies greatly depending on the risk category, the risk profile of the building. So significantly less people and less trucks at for example, a single-story detached home as compared to a working fire in a high-rise residential building. This map will show you that the performance, the response time performance that is happening in our city to these fires by the metric effective firefighting force is at the best practice standard of 90%. It is literally world-class fire protection.
Right. And we have been, we've got there, but we have been giving you extra resources. There is an ongoing hiring program for paramedics and your service. And so you're profiling not just areas in this heat map, but building by building, you're profiling risk. And so when we give you resources, the wisest thing to do wouldn't be to say each ward gets X number of new crews. You're risk profiling and sending them where they need to be when they need to be there.
Madam Speaker, absolutely correct, Councillor. We employ an analytics-based decision-making model. So every resource that Council provides us with is deployed to the position of highest need. And I should say, Councillor, we just came through an exercise. One of the outcomes of the last CFAI accreditation, our international accreditation, called on us to undertake a critical review of the deployment of all of our personnel and resources. We completed that over the last couple of years. We're actually turning the curve on response time performance at no additional cost. And that's just by the redistribution of resources. And Madam Speaker, as Councillor Carroll pointed out, Council has made strategic investments in the enhancement and increasing our personnel count. We have onboarded the first 52 firefighters. There is an allocation or a request in this year's budget for the second tranche of 52, with a subsequent to follow a third 52. That is critical staffing that will help us compete with or deal with the impacts of unplanned absence like WSIB.
Okay, and since we do still have another bit of that, this is following on what Councillor Fletcher was asking. We actually gave your budget, we gave a look at what you had for hiring and what you had for recruiting in the right places, if you will. You asked for extra human resources to be able to make sure you were going to the right schools, hitting the right culture groups, and trying to draw in the kind of diversity that would also be good for the service for responding to all incidents. Do those resources still exist? Are we still hitting the right schools and trying to hit the right populations?
Madam Speaker, they absolutely exist. This council has made key strategic investments with respect to a number of aspects of what we call fire protection performance. So emergency response is one of those. You'll recall a number of years ago there were significant improvements that allowed us to create a fire investigations team. That exists today. You enhanced the levels of fire prevention staff that we have. That enabled us to implement a service level that is in place today and has been since, where, as an example, we inspect every high-rise residential building in this city no less than once every 12 months. I can tell you that on a national basis, that is an uncommon fire protection level. And those impacts, the impact of those decisions over the 3-year period following, reduced our fatal fire experience in high-rise residential by 50%. It's literally saving lives.
Wow. Thank you. Thanks, Madam Speaker.
Councillor Canada.
Through you, Madam Speaker, I'd like to start with thanking the fire service for the heartening and reassuring numbers in terms of response times, especially in relation to national and international standards. So extending my appreciation and gratitude for those service levels. But of course, with every organization or institution we look to improve, I wanted to pick up on the concerns surrounding the response times by geography. And Councillor Fletcher rightfully pointed out their unique social circumstances to the core of the downtown. Having said that, dynamics and realities are changing in the suburbs. We're seeing greater intensification in Scarborough. We're seeing the proliferation of multi-unit or multi-tenant or rooming houses by virtue of the dramatic international student population. I certainly see that in my ward, a big concern for so many of us in Scarborough. So as part of a continuous approach to improvement within any service, is there a plan, whether capital or operational, to help reduce the response times and that inequity we're seeing by geography? What is the fire service's plan on those two?
Madam Speaker, yes, Councillor, there are plans. Let me detail them for you. So, in no particular order. In our operating budget forecast, as we explained, we have just now onboarded the first 52 additional frontline firefighters. So that addresses 1/3 of the shortfall that we experience from unplanned absence. Every one of those people on the front line improve response times. The second 52 will be included in the 2024 budget ask for council consideration, and the final 52 in the 2025. So that is the principal issue that we needed to address. Council was responsive to that. Addressing those unplanned absences so that we don't have to continue to reduce our frontline capacity.
Will they be, sorry to interrupt, will they be deployed in the areas that we're seeing lower or higher wait times?
Madam Speaker, so initially we replace people that are off on unplanned absence. So they go directly to where the vacancy is. Second issue, they're in the budget. You asked about capital budget. There are additional stations being identified in high priority areas. So that is included in the budget. And as I explained in response to Councillor Carroll's question, we have just completed the operations deployment review with an optimization of our resources, and we are seeing those results.
Sorry to interrupt. Last piece, as part of the efforts to diversify the Toronto firefighting service, I encourage you to reach out to different South Asian demographic groups. We're the fastest growing demographic city of Toronto, and of course not reflective in the employment equity data. So hope to see that as part of your efforts. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, if I may just respond to that, I'm really excited to tell you, Councillor, that we just this year reinstituted a long mothball division known as our community outreach and recruitment division. So we now have that restarted. These are people focused directly on targeting and reaching into equity-deserving communities and underserved communities. So that work is underway, Councillor, and will continue.
Excellent. Happy to help with the South Asian outreach.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Speaker. I just want to pick up on the questions that were asked by Councillor Fletcher and Councillor Carroll around the workforce and ensuring that we're developing a pathway for diverse hires and retention of people who are from diverse backgrounds. And my first question is around the promotion internally of underrepresented groups, women and other groups, and what is being done to make sure that we're seeing that in the, that people are able to rise in the ranks.
Thank you, Councillor. Madam Speaker, so with respect to promotions, the promotional process from the first level of officer, the first level of supervisor, all the way up to our district chief level is a prescribed procedure within the collective agreement. Okay. So that exists under the collective agreement. I do not have the unilateral authority to adjust that. I will say, however, President Reid and the Toronto Professional Firefighters Association work hand in hand with us. We are doing really good work and advancing a number of these conversations and a number of these initiatives. I will also say that the parties today, I believe, actually, commenced the bargaining process. The collective agreement expires at the end of this month, and the initial inaugural meetings were commenced today. Things like you just discussed are key priority items for this round of bargaining.
Thank you. And there's the question about, I heard clearly that if a person is on Ontario Works or if they have access to borrowing funds for training, they're able to sort of get in the path. And is there an openness to working with the organizations that are actually doing the work of creating that path? And I'm thinking of work that I've done, that Councillor Fletcher's done, with ensuring, for example, that in the construction trades, there are people who are underrepresented that are able to come alongside? Is there an openness to looking at those kinds of organizations that are really experts in workforce strategies and supports that create a kind of like a pre-apprenticeship type model where you can sort of see a future and work toward it with support?
Madam Speaker, short answer is yes. Not only is there an openness, but there's an eagerness and an excitement amongst our team to do that. I will say that, as an example, we are already in really productive conversations with our colleagues at Toronto Employment and Social Services, talking about ways that we can expand the access to these careers and expand the ability for underrepresented groups to achieve careers in the fire service.
Thanks. And on the question, there's been some questions about the relative resource-intense areas of the city, like so-called downtown, the old city of Toronto. It's at the same time where many services are located to help people who are in vulnerable situations. I'm wondering if some of my council colleagues recognize that you can't, if we're concentrating services in what particular area, there are going to be more calls to you. Is that accurate?
Madam Speaker, it is accurate. As I say, that we distribute and pre-position resources on the basis of risk. The principal risk from a public fire safety and a public safety standpoint is people. So we also have a unique responsibility where we have a responsibility for the protection of people, but also a secondary response to protect buildings. So we manage those, but the first priority is always public safety. We're deploying our resources to the position of best advantage to put help on the scene when people need it as fast as possible.
And this is increasingly data-driven, is that accurate?
Madam Speaker, absolutely correct. One of the investments Council made a number of years ago was to give us the resources to create what is now our data analytics and decision support team. Everything that happens within Toronto Fire Services now is based on data analytics, and that includes all of the work that has happened now in our continuing journey towards reaccreditation. And I can tell you we just completed the peer review process. We've been recommended for reaccreditation and will testify before the International Commission on Fire Accreditation in February.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Shelley.
Councillor Burnside.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Yeah, through you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Through you to the Chief. I believe Council approved funds for recruitment staff, which I wasn't around, but I presume it was to sort of recruit in the areas where the target areas that we're looking for. Have those positions been filled?
Madam Speaker, some of them have. The leadership position in that, which is known as our District Chief of Community Outreach and Recruitment, that position is filled and in place. There are 3 other positions that we are in the process of. The second is the captain, so the supervisory position. That is a promotional process that needs to run. The 2 frontline positions, the firefighter level positions, have been referred to Sean Malloy and the bargaining team. The process by which they fill in some of the working conditions around that need to be negotiated with the association, so it's a bargaining priority. I have no doubt that that will be successful.
So sorry, when was that funding approved?
I don't recall off the top of my head, Councillor. I'm happy to get that for you.
Would you say it's more than a year ago?
Yes, Madam Speaker, it is at least a year ago, yes.
Right, so if this is a priority, which I presume it is, am I like out in left field thinking that it should be these staff positions, whether you have to deal with the union or not, would it be filled by now?
Madam Speaker, no, that's a very fair question, Councillor. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic created such a profound recruitment backlog for us that we are still trying to work through that. So we've been able to get through part of it. As I said, the internal, what we can control internally has been addressed with the promotion of the district chief and the filling of that role. We are now into the cycle with the firefighter level position. So we would have preferred to do it earlier as well. Unfortunately, the backlogs were what they were, and we've done our very best to expedite.
But aren't those 2 different processes? One for the firefighter positions and one for recruitment?
Madam Speaker, they're both firefighter level positions. Within the construct of the local 3888 collective agreement, all of those positions are defined as firefighters. So the baseline position is all the same. The process by which we recruit it varies slightly based on some of the specific job qualifications for each of those positions, but they're very similar, Councillor. And the resources that we require to do those recruitment, predominantly that of my friend in People and Equity, we are a client of People and Equity. Toronto Fire Services does not self-manage recruitment. We do that as any other city division with P&E, and of course, all of us working through the backlog and trying to get through that as quickly as possible.
So am I to infer that People and Equity are causing a delay?
I'll start and then my friend can answer. I would say no, they're not causing a delay. We're just dealing with a backlog, Councillor, and having to get things in place. One of those things is the creation of these new positions. They did not exist before. And in accordance with the terms of the collective agreement, we are compelled to negotiate those terms and conditions with the association under collective bargaining. Mary?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, through Speaker, Councillor Burnside. Just last year, I mean, it's not that we aren't prioritizing firefighters. We filled over 16,000 positions. And so we have been, it has been an immense effort in recruitment, and we are, happy that we're getting our queues down. Our turnover rate is coming in under 10%. So that's not just for fire, it is for an immense amount of recruitment that we do for the city.
Okay, thank you. So through the Speaker, back to the Chief. If you could get me that information in terms of when the funding was approved, because maybe we have a systemic problem if it's more than a year. But anyway, we can have a discussion about that offline. Also, what's the process for hiring deputy chiefs? Who makes that decision?
Madam Speaker, deputy chiefs are non-union. They're exempt positions. Those recruitment processes, again, are run by People and Equity. That process, there can be some variance. It's a decision that is ultimately made in consultation with the Deputy City Manager's Office. The Fire Chief is directly involved in that. Depending on the circumstance and the timing, there will always be a concurrent internal and external recruitment process for that, and often they are searched globally. The most recent Deputy Chief was filled via a global search.
And so you would have been on that panel?
Okay.
Madam Speaker, yes, I am.
That was your last question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, if we can put the speakers list up. Councillor Holiday to speak.
Thank you. Before I begin, can I just check with the clerks that my motions are ready? There's two.
Yeah, they're ready.
Great. If the clerks could present them. The first motion, and I'm just going by memory, Speaker. The first motion asks the General Manager of Transportation to consult with Toronto Fire Services and to provide additional analysis and commentary in reports in any of the zones on the map that we see in this report that fall below the 60% benchmark. And the second motion speaks to doing some analysis by transportation, working with Toronto Fire Services on the impacts of the Bloor Street bike lane extensions out in Etobicoke. I'll speak to the second one first. In reading this report, and my accolades to Toronto Fire, I thought it was an excellent report that spoke about a lot of things and was very easy to read, digest, and understand. I realize that there is quite a bit of data and analytics that speak to how they measure their performance. And recently, the question had been posed about the Bloor Street bike lanes to me by constituents about their impact to emergency services. I know the infrastructure is not in Ward 2, but this is close enough to Ward 2 that impacts emergency services, and I thought this might be an opportunity to ask that question, seeing what I saw. And the second piece is more general in nature, and that is, if we have these really long travel times in the suburbs, maybe when it's a red square on the map, it might be time to take a closer look when we're making decisions and bring that data into a more prominent position. And I think that would be helpful for council or the committees as they process the different reports that we have to consider. But if travel times are getting longer in the city, and it's making things harder for emergency services, so are the risks that are increasing to the population. And we know that seconds count, whether it's a fire or a medical emergency or a police call. And I mean, I can think of a story that I heard from a constituent just this week about why seconds counted. And understanding the impacts of congestion and structural changes that we make, I think, is important. It's important for accountability for council. And if we don't ask for that data, it speaks volumes about us. If we don't pay attention and consider it, it speaks volumes about us. What we ultimately decide at the end of the day with the report, we're accountable for. But ensuring the information is put out there in the forefront is important for public's confidence that we've done a thorough examination of each of these proposals. And I think that these particular asks are constructive in nature. And the hope and the sense that I have is that the data is there to be taken because these maps were very, very helpful in me understanding our city and the differences in the geography. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Okay, so if we can put Councillor Holiday's motion on the screen. Well, I don't have anybody else on the list. Okay, there you are. Councillor Fletcher to speak.
Thank you. This is along the lines of what I was asking the chief and the chief people officer. And I'm always struck by how we're working with OW clients. But there's many other people than OW clients who should have access to firefighting. And this really is to look at what steps can be taken in TCHC. There's so many people that are out there with a little job here and a little job there that would want this good job, and you have to be funneled through OW to get that. And I'm very aware of this because of a young man in my community who had 3 jobs who wanted to be a firefighter. 3 jobs. 3. Working very hard. But he was blocked out because he wasn't on OW. Now, there's something wrong with that picture. Something wrong with that picture. TCHC resident. I think we have to find a way to assist. And everybody, all low-income folks, there used to be a rule in the recruitment, and I believe it's gone, that you got extra points to become a firefighter on the criteria list if you were a volunteer firefighter. If you were a volunteer firefighter. Now, where are there volunteer firefighters? There are none in the city of Toronto. I don't think you have to go to Hamilton. I think they're quite well not volunteered there. It's out in the early 705 area. So everybody's coming to the city because they were volunteers. It was only a few years ago that got removed. And so that meant that we didn't have a focus on recruiting Torontonians who live in this city, to fight fires in this city, to go and do all the... Mike, can you stop?
Councillor Cole, please.
I'm happy if you speak about that. Kids in Lawrence Heights couldn't get in, couldn't afford all the courses, and they hadn't been volunteer firefighters because you had to have that experience. Now imagine, that's kind of a red circle in my opinion. It was red circle for many, many, many years. I think it was only lifted about 3 or 4 years ago. So no wonder. I mean, it's just unconscionable to me to think about that. It's like saying if you want to be a police officer in Toronto, you had to have been a volunteer police officer somewhere in the province of Ontario. That's a red circle. So we have a long ways to go. 44% might be a great number, but actually it was nothing for many years because of that criteria where the folks that live in the inner city, the folks that live in Lawrence Heights, the folks that live in Scarborough, the folks that live in Don Mountain region, they had no access. And now, people, unless you're on OW collecting, you have no access. So we still have something wrong here. We fixed one thing. It's not all, mostly guys who were volunteer firefighters somewhere else that are in our service. No disrespect to any of them, they work very hard, but that was our recruitment model. There was a problem with that recruitment model, a problem. And I think we all recognize that we have a ways to go here in order to fix what's a historical criteria problem in Toronto Fire. And so this motion says, how are you going to overcome that? How are you going to expedite that? What's your plan? How do we get people to get their Z licenses or their this license or that license without having to go on OW to become a firefighter? And I see Councillor Candeville nodding his head because everybody understands the hurdles to get into this. I'll call it very elite, very important job in the city of Toronto, the emergency services jobs. And, you know, I don't always toot the horn of the Toronto Police Service, but they have taken diversity and equity very, very, very seriously. Their whole command everywhere. They've taken steps. And I think that we have to ensure as a council that all of our emergency services take the same steps and come up to that level. And this is the way that I want to hear how this is going to happen in fire. Well, you can vote for it, Councillor.
Okay, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Mantis has a question for you. 3 minutes, clarification of the motion.
Madam Chair, just a simple question to Councillor Fletcher. Do you think that maybe as a suggestion...
I can't hear you.
Do you think that maybe as a suggestion we could do something that is similar to what the Carpenters Union was doing for the apprentices program?
I think that's a very good idea because we'll hear how Toronto Community Benefits Network that has a whole vast number of people that want good jobs in the city, equity deserving groups. They all post, I want a job. I'm not sure that that's one of those places that we go to. There's a network, but perhaps we need to add other networks in. So, Councillor, that's an excellent idea. It can be covered off in my motion, Councillor.
What is going on with you?
He ate too many latkes.
Did you have too much pizza or what? Okay, Councillor McKelvey, you have a motion? Okay, just a sec.
And do you still want to speak? Okay.
No,
I have a motion to extend.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
To 10 o'clock, with the caveat that if we're not on good behavior, we could end up going later, because we have to finish by 3:30 tomorrow. So, and I will say, I'll take a minute to just say too, there are motions advance circulated on the IEC items, so you can look at those in advance. We have staff we can ask questions to. So there are lots of ways that we can speed this up. Okay, I'll move on to remarks on this item then.
Well, just a sec, because we have to vote on this first. And
Speaker, I want a recorded vote on
recorded
this.
vote.
This council is something else today.
Recorded vote.
Councillor Ching, please.
Councillor Candeville, you have to remain in your seat until the vote. Please. Councillor Perks, please stay in your seat until the vote is...
The motion carries. The vote is 15-6.
Counselor Myers. Counselor Myers. Well, then maybe you should release some of your items then. Counselor McKelvey to speak. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have a motion that City Council direct the General Manager of Transportation Services to report back in the next congestion management report on an improved process to account for emergency service impacts. So I think this is I would urge you to vote for yes on this one, no to Councillor Holiday's motions. I understand the merit, the premise of what he wants to accomplish, but I think we need city staff to say what is the best way to accomplish that. We do have congestion management coming back in January, so they can say how they can do this in a better, more transparent way going forward. And with that, I always take every opportunity I have to thank the fire chief and the service for the great work they do. So thank you very much for serving Toronto.
Okay, Councillor McKelvey has moved her motion. Okay, let's put the motions on the screen.
Recorded vote on Councillor Holiday's.
Councillor Canadell, please. The motion 1A does not carry. The vote is 7-14.
Okay, next motion on the screen. By Councillor Holiday. On favor, recorded vote.
Speaker, on a point of privilege, I can't connect right now.
Councillor Holiday, how do you vote, please? We've ended the vote.
I vote in favor.
Thank you. Motion 1B does not carry. The vote is 6-15.
Next motion by Councillor Fletcher. Recorded vote.
Motion 2 carries unanimously, 21 in favor.
This motion. Councillor McKelvey's motion. On favor? Carried. Item is amended. On favor? Carried. We can't just do it in the middle. Okay, our next item is EX 10.2. Councillor Holyday, you held the item down. Advancing generational transformation of Toronto's housing system. Do you have questions to staff?
I do, thank you, Speaker.
Okay, Councillor Holyday, questions?
So Speaker, I just wondered, I can't tell who's in the room to direct the question, but my question is if somebody can go over the exact change in the shareholder direction to Toronto Community Housing and explain exactly what that change is intended to do.
Is there anybody here to answer that question?
Thank you, Speaker. Yes, we're here. There are a number of staff here available to speak to this. So maybe I can begin and then I can pass over to my colleagues here. Maybe I can start and then pass over to my colleagues. So the changes that we propose in this report are specifically to align the mandates of both Toronto Community Housing and Create.to with the recently approved Generational Transformation Report that Council approved, which expands the number of housing units, specifically 65,000 rent-controlled units, including an additional RGI component. And really, this is about making sure that the mandates of those organizations are best aligned to deliver on those targets.
So I'll ask the question again. What changed from one shareholder direction to the other, and what was that change meant to do?
Through the Chair, Councillor, the change for Toronto Community Housing allows the organization to build a wider range of homes. Currently, their shareholder mandate is focused on replacing RGI units and building market condos, essentially. This change will allow the organization, as Abby mentioned, to build a wider range of homes, including RGI, rent-controlled market, affordable housing, as well as condos where appropriate.
So is Toronto Community Housing going to become the public builder?
Through the Speaker, Toronto Community Housing would continue to provide the service it does. It would be part of an equation that would assist in the public builder model, along with Create.to and the City, of course.
So do I understand that Toronto Community Housing is going to get deeper into development as opposed to its original mandate talked more about making arrangements and partnerships to redevelop its sites? Is it going further into the development world? You have to appreciate it's hard to glean from the report exactly what is changing.
Through the Speaker, in response to the councillor's question, it's as far as from a Toronto Community Housing perspective, I don't know that I would reflect it as going deeper It would continue with the scope that it currently undertakes, just a wider breadth of the types of builds, for example, infill, condo, and supporting potentially other projects as well. So it's a wider range of products, but not necessarily a wider scope.
Is any of this work now going to take place off of the current Toronto community housing properties?
Through the Speaker, I don't believe there's anything intended at this point in time. It's not to say that it wouldn't be possible from a support perspective. However, once again, this is part of the work that we're undertaking at this point as a result of this report to ensure that we're aligning all of the resources possible to deliver to the 65,000 and more specifically to the 6,500 RGI units.
So Toronto Community Housing still has an autonomous board. How is the governance contemplated with respect to this report speaking to the collaboration and coordination at the staff level? But how do you square that up with the governance that's provided through its independence of its board? And how do you deal with a situation where council might want one thing, staff might want another thing, and the board might want something else?
Through the Speaker, it's item or action 3 that refers to, I guess, how we would be adjusting the mandate from a Toronto community housing perspective. As far as, I guess, a difference of opinion between the three, the whole intent of this next step is to align all three organizations, Toronto Community Housing, Create TO, and the City of Toronto, as far as an aligned vision for the affordable housing strategy. It actually, in my opinion, it would reduce the chances of having a difference of opinion. It would drive greater alignment.
Other than the shareholder direction, is there anything in the report that actually requires council approval?
That was your last question. Go ahead.
My apologies. Could you clarify?
So to clarify, the shareholder direction change is a very formal change that council has to approve. But out of the other elements of the report that it speaks to, is there anything that council actually has to approve, or do you not have the authority at the staff level to do things such as staffing changes and so on?
Through the Speaker, I believe this is what we would require from council as approval. Beyond this would be the change that Toronto Community Housing would look at from a strategic plan perspective, and then once again alignment to the housing strategy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Kendeville.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you to staff. I applaud the ambition within recommendation 1 to create complete communities that are at the heart mixed income, and I think all the planning literature speaks to the value of creating socially cohesive communities through mixed income neighborhoods. In the 80s, we saw the development of the St. Lawrence Market heralded as a brilliant example of not just mixed income, but also mixed purpose and mixed use. I may have missed that. Is that part of the vision ambition of this new alignment through you, Madam Speaker, to staff?
Through the Speaker, yes, Councillor. There are a number of opportunities on city land, be they kind of led by the city or led by TCHC, to include city building objectives. You see that on some of the Housing Now sites and other rental development where there are things like childcare or other community spaces which are also included, along with the full range of rents that you would see in a redevelopment, be that TCHC, so RGI replacement plus affordable rental as well.
Excellent. So to confirm, there's the commitment for mixed purpose, mixed use projects?
Through the Speaker, that is something that is undertaken, the assessment of that is undertaken on a site-by-site basis, also in line with, the other departments at the city and the needs that they have for capital investment and space to meet other city objectives.
Thank you, thank you. I just want to underscore that here's a moment in time that we can rethink how we do something that's loosely described as social housing, but of course, so much more. And I applaud the approach from the mayor and others to create this alignment that can really create communities that are viable and enviable. And I think I'm looking forward as a board member of TCHC, but also as a city councillor to see these realities come through. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Councillor Chang to speak.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to get a little more clarity on Councillor Candeville's question. When we say mixed use, and I hear about amenities and services, but will there be the opportunity to create commercial real estate opportunities on TCHC assets to perhaps generate revenue, bring vibrancy, and maybe have local businesses that are run by people who live in the mixed-use communities?
Through the Speaker, it's common for us when we develop city-owned land, specifically housing now, where you often see the creation of job space to be required as part of a planning approach for an area to be included in any city development. So I think there is absolutely the possibility to include commercial retail where it's required, and obviously that can be of huge benefit both as a revenue source but also for the community at large.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay, speakers. Councillor Holiday, did you want to speak on this?
No, recorded vote, please.
Okay, recorded vote. Not a motion, it's just the item Councillor Holiday has asked for recorded vote. Okay, that's on EX 10.2. Toronto Housing.
Councillor Matlow, may we have your vote, please? Thank you. The vote to adopt the item carries. The vote is 19-1.
Okay, next item is EX 10.9, Operating Variance Report. Councillor Carroll, you held the item down.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Yes, it's really a quick release. I know a lot of people have had offline questions, but now there's a whole cluster there that would like to go home. So we have one motion, and this is really just a timing technical motion from the CFO, and I don't have any questions.
Okay.
So I'm hoping to move the motion. I'm hoping there are no other questions.
Well, apparently Councillor Pasternak wants to ask questions.
I understood him to have received those answers offline, and given the lateness of the hour, I thought.
Okay, Councillor Pasternak, do you have questions? Councillor Pasternak? Councillor Pasternak? Huh?
Yes, sorry about that. Yes, so questions for staff. It's regarding the federal cannabis excise duty.
Okay.
Now, when council.
Okay, hold on. Something's going on. We hear voices. We hear a lot of voices. Okay, now I'm getting a headache now. Councillor Pasternak, are you connected properly?
Okay. I'll skip questions.
Okay. Councillor Carroll, do you want to move your motion? And Councillor Fletcher, can I ask you to
love to
come to the chair? So Councillor Pasternak, the reason we have a problem is that you have two devices on. Where are you?
It's rather personal.
Well, at this hour, I think we can literally say snooze, you lose.
Okay, Councillor Carroll. Councillor Carroll, do you want to speak?
I'd like to put my motion on.
Get staff to do your motion.
Good plan.
No, the next item,
If I just move my motion, those people will all start singing "The Sun Has Gone, It's Time to Say Goodbye," right from The Sound of Music. And they'll all walk out backwards. If we could just move this motion.
Are you ready?
Yes.
There it is.
Oh, here it is. Quick timing motion. This could just as easily have gone with the New Deal. There are some report backs mentioned in this report as part of the long-term financial plan. We're going to look at the review of the impact of the New Deal, and then these reports will come, but they'll be coming February 29, because the report was to look at what their impact could be in 2025. And so given the amount of work from 7 in the morning till well past 10 o'clock every night that our CFO was doing in the month of November, we're going to give him till then to write the report. Yeah.
You're done? Thank you very much.
Stay tuned.
Thank you. So there is a question attempt from Councillor Pasternak for your motion, assuming we can get him online.
No. I see his face. No.
Oh, Councillor Pasternak, you have too many devices on, either the phone or the WebEx. One or the other, please.
He must be logged in twice.
You're logged in a couple of times. We can't manage that. I'm sorry. Could we get some AV advice, the council? Councillor Pasternak, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Now I think you're fine. You're not squeaking and squealing. That's great. Okay, your question for Councillor. Your question for Councillor.
I thought I was on the speaker's list.
Okay, so Councillor Holladay has a question for you, Councillor Carroll.
No, I think he just wants to speak. Oh, Councillor Holladay.
I see question mover.
Certainly.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor Holladay.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Just so I understand, Councillor Carroll, the intention of your motion is to move reporting that was planned in 2025 up to
No, I'm not.
February next year.
No, I'm not moving the report up. This is a report that council asked, when we were deliberating over the LTFP, council asked that this report come in time for budget. But they wanted a report for budget that would in fact help spell out the impact on the budget that would take place in 2025. And so as a workload, and so that we can do a better job on the budget at hand, what we're saying is let's get the budget at hand done, which is taking a yeoman's amount of intergovernmental work at the moment, that this report could come to executive immediately after the budget and have well and truly enough time to have the impact it needs to have the following year.
So I'm sorry, could you just help me understand, when was it otherwise contemplated to come?
In time for budget 2024, so I guess that would make it January 2024. I'm moving it back a month.
So you're moving it later 1 month?
Yes, I am.
And the contents of Part 10 at EX 7.1, would I be fair to call it the long list of various taxes?
Yes, yes.
Okay. All right.
Is that your
Thank you
question?
for the clarification.
Thank you so much.
Got it.
Councillor Nunziata, do you have a question on this one? No. Okay, thank you. Yes, I understand. So that would be, Councillor Pasternak, you wanted to speak. Councillor Carroll, you're finished with your answers. Councillor Pasternak.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair. I do have a motion, if the clerk can put it on the screen. And it's for consideration through the 2024 budgetary process. I was advised to move it on this item.
Thank you. You've moved that. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yes. So just very quickly, and I know it's getting late. So really what we want to do, if there's some wiggle room within our budget, I know it's very tight, is put more money into Toronto for All. And this is an educational, public awareness, anti-hate initiative that we've been rolling out with the great work of Denise Campbell for a number of years. I was just given some budgetary figures, and it's totally inadequate to really do it across the city in a holistic way. So I'm moving that motion so that during the budgetary process, they can take that under consideration. Thanks very much.
Do you have a second motion, Councillor?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. You did have another motion about cannabis costs. Did you wish to move that one?
He's just done cannabis.
Well, yeah, so
right now. He seems a bit confused.
if the motion,
Are you moving that tonight, or you don't want to move that?
yes, if the motion is ready, I would move that as well.
It's ready. It's up on there now. Thank you. Pardon me?
So,
It's displayed, yes. Go ahead and read
yes.
that. Okay.
Okay, so I must admit, it's a little difficult to see it all from here, but basically on the cannabis file, what we've been waiting for is some numbers regarding the federal cannabis excise duty. When we adopted the policy of allowing retail cannabis in the city, we were promised a share of funds, any funds over $100 million that the province received through the federal cannabis excise duty, it would be shared among the municipalities that opted into retail cannabis. So by my calculations, we're over that number by about 210 million in 2022, 2023, and it's projected to be over the 100 million mark of 169 in 2023, 2024. Now, it's hard to estimate how much our share is because it's hard to calculate how many municipalities actually opted in. But in earlier tranches of funds under this legislation, Toronto got about 25%. So we're asking staff to watch this closely, report back in the budgetary process, and as always, make sure we get our fair share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. There's a few motions here. Anyone else to speak? We're done? Thank you. There's some motions for us. Can we have the clerk post them? First one, which one is it? Sorry? Pardon me? Oh, one moment, please. We'll just get those posted. There it is there. It's Councillor Carroll's motion. All in favor?
Recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote on Councillor Carroll's motion. Thank you very much. Thank you. Councillor Holliday's requested a recorded vote. Speaker Nunziata, this is your vote up here. Yes? It's okay. I just won't vote. It's fine. Okay, I'll just tell you my vote. It's, yes.
Here to vote.
Okay, press.
Okay.
In the affirmative for me. Thank you.
I'm affirmative.
Councillor Cole?
I'm affirmative.
But you're not at your desk.
You're not either.
Could you go back to your desk and take your old Halloween candies with you? Thank you.
The motion carries. The vote is 19-2.
Thank you. The next motion. Councillor Pasternak, one of your motions will be next. Recorded or just all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That carries. Next motion. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you very much. Item as amended. All in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Thank you. Next item. I believe we will leave the EX 10.12.
For tomorrow. And then we'll do
Updates to the
yeah, we'll do the
constituency.
Cummer one. Yeah.
Thank you. My deputy's chair, my speaker. Yes. 10.12, we'll wait till tomorrow to do that. Updates to the constituency services and office budget. So we'll move to 10.16, Cummer Station, response to council motions, which is held by you, Councillor Chang. Thank you. Did you wish to question staff, speak? Councillor Cheng? Could you put your name there, please, for the question? Thank you. Thank you. Off you go. Yep. You're on.
Thank you. This is the song I won't stop singing about, Cummer Station. So question of staff, thank you so much for this business case that came at a very quick pace. Just wondering, by 2051, how many boardings and alightings do we predict Cummer Station would have if we built it?
So our modeling shows up around 23,000 boardings and alightings in.
And what stations would that be comparable to?
That's comparable to what we're seeing at a number of stations like Wilson, Eglinton West, Wellesley Station.
And how many jobs do we predict will be around that area?
We're talking about an increase in employment to about 5,700 jobs.
What is the distance between Finch Station and Steele Station?
That's roughly 2 kilometers.
So based on walk sheds, is there a gap in that distance where people will likely not be as amenable to using higher order transit?
So if you look at a walkshed of about 800 meters, there is a bit of a gap in the area of Cummer, yes.
And based on the density that is coming, does it fulfill the targets for the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe for major transit station areas?
The Greater Golden, the growth plan requires a minimum density of 200 people and jobs per hectare, and we estimate that this would be this would reach around 249 people and jobs per hectare.
And will the boring machines be at Yonge and Cummer?
Through the Deputy Speaker to you, Councillor, can you please repeat the question? When will they be there?
No, will the boring machines be there?
Yes, they will.
And are they also installing an emergency exit at that location?
There are going to be emergency exits located at various locations throughout the alignment, and I can't tell you at this point in time whether or not there's an emergency exit building at that location.
And currently, the RFP was just released recently. Is there any mention of Cummer Station, of making space for it as a potential future build based on the density that is coming?
Through the Speaker, no, there is no mention in the RFP of any station at Cummer Station.
But a few years ago, when this extension was first proposed, was Cummer Station on the map?
Through the Speaker, yes, it was.
How did it magically disappear?
So through the Speaker, Metrolinx did an initial business case. As part of the initial business case study, they indicated that the Cummer Station was not a station that was going to perform as well as the other stations, and due to cost constraints that they had identified in their initial business case, they chose to remove that station as well as one of the stations in York Region.
And then what happened? Did they end up restoring the station that was removed?
Through the Speaker, the station in York Region that was removed was reinstalled, but that was due to the fact that the region had indicated they would provide funding for that station.
So, based on our analysis, is Cummer Station a stronger candidate to have a subway station versus Royal Orchard and Clark, which are being built?
Through the Speaker, our analysis showed that station at Cummer was stronger than the Royal Orchard.
So what will happen when there is a walkshed gap and there is density planned, especially with the Yonge Street North secondary plan? What will happen with that gap? Will people then choose not to take the subway? What do we predict based on people's habits and the distance between, walking distance to the subway station?
Well, certainly people will still have the opportunity to walk to Finch or the new Steel station, and many would be within a reasonable walking distance of those. In terms of what people may choose to do, we may see more people driving, but we may also need to work with the TTC in terms of how to configure the bus routes in that area as well to provide service to the other two stations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Burnside, questions?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker. Through you to staff, what's the radius of an MTSA?
Through the Speaker, that varies, but generally the 500 to 800 meter circumference. I mean, it's never a perfect circle, but.
So 800 meters, we know that they always go on the higher end. So at any spot, I guess, along from Finch to Steeles, you're a kilometer from the most your walking distance you're away from a station is 1 kilometer. Is that correct? Along Yonge Street?
Through
where all the density is. If it's 2 kilometers,
yes, so
the halfway point is a kilometer, right?
Yes, I agree with your math, Councillor.
Okay, thanks. And would you agree that if that it's a balance when you're putting in subway stops, like the more stops you put in, the longer it takes to get where people are going. So it's a balance between having enough stops, but not so many, like on the Danforth, that it just slows people down, Danforth East specifically. Would you agree with that?
Through the speaker, certainly there is an impact on people who are on the subway if you've got more frequent stops in terms of how long it takes to get to your destination.
Okay, thanks. And then I guess my last question is, so we heard that it's 2 kilometers from Finch to Steeles. What's the distance from York Mills to Shepherd?
Through the speaker, I'm sorry, off the top of our heads, we don't have that distance. It's roughly, so we think it's roughly the same distance, about 2 kilometers.
Yeah, it's a grid system, right? We have a grid system on our major roadways. So would you agree that so York Mills to Shepherd is 2 kilometers. Would you agree that Shepherd to Finch is 2 kilometers?
That's correct, yes, Councillor.
So there is some rationale to where these stops are going, 2 kilometers apart.
We do have North York Centre in a shorter distance between Shepherd and Finch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I don't know that there's a strict rule about the spacing of stations. We look at other sorts of circumstances and conditions to also determine where a station might make sense.
Okay, thanks. And my last question is Wellesley a busy station?
Wellesley is not the busiest, but it's moderately busy, yes.
So busier than St. Clair?
We don't have those numbers here with us, but our sense is that it wouldn't be as busy as St. Clair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mantis, questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. Who owns the property at the location where the Cumber station would have been if it would be created?
At the moment, the property is privately owned. That's never been acquired for the station.
It's privately owned. Is there a potential, as we see that we need more density and to create more housing, that maybe there could have been a condo unit or a rental unit being built on top of a station?
So through the speaker, certainly that is what the provincial government is doing at most of the new stations that they're looking at, the development opportunities above. When we look at Cumber Station, a lot of development has already happened or has been approved, and so there are perhaps more limited opportunities for that kind of transit-oriented communities type development, not as much as in some other areas.
But I mean, there could be a potential in the future, I mean, for that property, if we have the right opportunity or climate at a future date to be able to build more.
Certainly the opportunity to build above the station always exists, yes. Okay. And what would be the return on that? That's probably more the question.
So could we still create the, I guess, the walls or any other infrastructure that would allow us to build a station in the future?
Through the speaker, yes. By putting in the walls, you could do that in the future. However, it comes at a significant cost.
But wouldn't the cost actually be, wouldn't it be cheaper to do it today than to do it 10 years from now, as we've seen in other projects?
Through the speaker to you, Councillor, if you were to ask, if you're asking my advice, the installation of head walls in the ground at this point in time is not the solution that you would want to come forward with. You would want to come forward with a full solution. The head walls aren't going to give you an optimum solution. It's not going to give you good value for money.
Then couldn't we design a new solution, like a better solution, instead of just having the head walls?
The only way to design a better solution is to actually commit to a fully funded station.
But we can commit for something that could be built in the future. We're not engineering on the floor.
So through the speaker, just a very quickly, the head walls that are being put in are the first step to allow for the tunnel contract to drive the tunnel boring machines through the head walls. That's all it's there for. It doesn't create a station box. In order for you to effectively have a station that works, that's going to actually demonstrate good value, you would have to build a station box that allows then the structure to be further built on top of the tunnel.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, speakers. Councillor Cheng. Go ahead.
I'd like to forward the attachment 1 of the report from the Chief Planner and Executive Director to the Province of Ontario, and further request that they formally respond to the case for Cummer Station prepared by Toronto's Chief Planner and Executive Director, City Planning, and Executive Director of Transit Planning, include Cummer Station in the Metrolink State Gate design process, and receive this letter that we have attached that is signed by our Mayor, our Budget Chief, our Deputy Mayor of North York, our Deputy Mayor of Scarborough and Chair of Toronto Infrastructure and Environment, and many community organizations. What we have here is a place where density has already been approved. The research shows that there could be 23,000 boardings and alightings by 2051. The train is leaving the station, literally, and we're watching it go. And meanwhile, the residents of Willowdale will have to put up with years of tunnel boring through our stretch of Yonge Street without the benefit of a station to look forward to there. So I am asking for your support to loudly amplify, because at this point, when I talk to staff, the only solution for this is political. Somebody has to think about the residents of Willowdale, and not just the ones that live there now, but the ones that are coming. We want a transit-oriented city. We want people to get out of their cars and take higher order transit. And this station will help build that complete community. If we look at North York Centre Station, it was first, we actually saved space for it. We created the box and then went back and built the station. Why? Because there was a vision of density, that it would become the center of the city, and it is the center of North York. And we have a continued vision of developing great density in Willowdale. Willowdale proves that building higher order transit brings in a new urban center, brings in density and vibrancy. If you come to Mel Lastman Square and see our holiday fair in the square that's happening right now, you will experience what Mel Lastman envisioned back in the day. Once upon a time, it was a farmer's suburb. There were farms that were alongside suburban communities. But because of the subway, we have this vibrant, beautiful city where we have done our heavy lifting in adding housing to our city. We've stretched our housing so much that a new school that opened in 2019 already has 7 portables. So what we are asking is support from the province. We want to answer the call to build more housing, to build more complete communities. But in order to do that, our residents need to be supported by higher order transit. That's the only way you get a vibrant neighborhood where you can take the subway from one area to the next and have dinner, instead of having to get off a subway and walk up to 15 to 20 minutes to get to a destination. That kills vibrancy. I use both Yonge and Finch Station, Yonge and North York Centre, and to me, having the 2 options increases the vibrancy and connectivity of my neighborhood. North York Centre Station is the proof that the distance between Yonge and Finch and Yonge and Cummer is not something that should be overlooked. It will create an important node, a vibrant hub that will build greater connectivity in my neighborhood. So let's make a collective call to our Premier. He wants to have a legacy as the subway building Premier. So I'm saying to you, Mr. Doug Ford, Premier Doug Ford, please build this station and add it to your legacy of building subways here in the city of Toronto. Thank you.
Councillor Cole to speak.
Yes, I just wanted to support my fellow North Yorker for her tenacity and advocacy on behalf of the people of North York and in Willdale and the forgotten center of Toronto, which is Upper North Yonge Street. Everybody talks about, well, downtown Yonge Street. If you want to see the real new Toronto, come north of Shepherd. You will not believe the incredible animation, activity, the people of all ages from every country in the world, and the shops, the services, again, it's an incredible, and again, and if you come to Mount Lastman Square, again, we couldn't even get the lights turned on the other day we were up there. We had to get our own lights because they basically abandoned the North York Centre there, but that's another story. But I just want to say, and I was there with Mel Lastman when we fought to get, Gord remembers this, it was called the Park Home Station.
Yes, I do.
Mel was saying, we're building a center here, a city hall, the Nova Hotel, all these stores, all this housing, and they wanted to bypass that and just go straight up to Finch. But Mel, was very persuasive. And I remember we had a $25 campaign. We asked everybody in the city to say, if you can contribute $25, we can get this subway built, and then we can have a station at Park Home, which is now called North York Centre, I guess. So it can be done if that's what Councillor Cheng is trying to do, activate people, and our staff has supported her in her dream of getting a station there. Because subways have changed dramatically. They're no longer speeding trains that pass by and don't stop to basically service an area, support an area, and support communities. Because in this station here, this Yonge line, I've never supported the extension of the Yonge line north anyways, but they can go at least to our boundary, but to go up to Richmond Hill is pure insanity. Because what happens is, before the pandemic, you had to wait 7 trains to get on the subway at Yonge and Eglinton. 7 trains had to go by before you can get on at 8 o'clock. So now what they're going to do, they're going to extend it up to York Region. Everybody's going to get on at York Region. I don't know why the TTC isn't fighting this crazy extension north, because the bottom part of the line will not be operational. You'll have so many people from up in Richmond Hill and those places getting on. You will need pushers to get people on the trains at Eglinton and Davisville all the way down. You won't get on. So it won't be for the people of Toronto. It'll be for the people way out there. So that's why we need to pay attention to the people of Toronto and North York who are saying, let the train stop at Cummer. Our analysis shows it makes a lot more sense than this gift to York Region where the numbers don't add up. But just remember, you're dealing with Metro links. And you want to ask them how to design a subway? Just see the fiasco on Eglinton.
There we go.
They can't figure out how to make the station, never mind the stations, the line work. The tracks don't meet at Laird Drive. They're off by about 10 meters. They can't get them to meet. So it's been 13 years, $13 billion. And they have these press conferences where Mr. Verster, who just got $1 million raise, says, well, I'm having a press conference, but I don't really know. I have nothing to say, but I'm having a press conference.
Okay, but Councillor Cole, can you just focus on the motion before us?
The motion
Because
is
it
about...
started 13 years ago.
Well, I know you
Weren't
support
you there
Ford
13
and the
years
whole
ago?
thing.
Weren't you at the province 13 years ago?
This is about North York.
Yeah, okay.
North York deserves Cummer Station. You may not support it, but I support the station at Cummer. Thank you.
Councillor Mantis to speak.
Madam Speaker, I'm going to be very short. I want to echo the comments of my colleague, Councillor Chang. Staff have spoken. I mean, it makes economic sense to have a Cummer Station. The evidence is there to support it. So I also would like to endorse Councillor Chang's motion, and I will be supporting it for the creation of Cummer Station.
Okay, Councillor Cole, you were there when they started Eglinton. You were there. I know. Okay, let's put the motion on the screen. There's no money involved here. We're just making a request. We're just making a request, and we'll wait until the Premier responds to us if we get this agenda completed. Recorded vote.
Councillor Carroll, are you able to vote? Thank you. The motion carries unanimously, 20 in favor.
EC 8.10, growth and expansion on Toronto's licensed childcare. Councillor Bravo, do you have questions of staff? Oh. Okay, we're just going to do some, we have 3 urgent, hold on. We have 3 urgent motions to add. We're going to do quick releases and we're going to recess. Okay. We're just going to extend to introduce these motions, quick releases, the bills, and then we're going to recess and come back nice and fresh tomorrow morning. Okay, who's on the list? And I hope that Councillor Cole gets a good night's sleep. Councillor Cole.
I have a motion?
You have a motion?
Yes, I do. Okay, this is just a motion asking for an expediting of these 2 studies that I asked for too long ago, and dealing with transportation and the planning department, because there's 10 condos going in there.
That's all you have to say.
And so we want to introduce this. Okay?
We're sold.
On favor, carried. Who's next? He's not here. Councillor McKelvey, do you want to introduce it on behalf of Councillor Ainsley?
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm introducing a motion without notice to display the 988 crisis line information poster. This is a new initiative of the federal government, and advertising posters could help save lives, so it's urgent.
On favor? Show of hands, carried. Councillor Cheng?
I have a motion.
I know, that's why I'm calling you.
Yes.
Okay, it's on the screen.
So it's taking action on the declaration of intimate partner violence as an epidemic.
Thank you. On favor? Carried. Okay, well, Duke, if anybody has a quick release, please put your name on the list. Councillor McKelvey.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't know if people have questions or speak on IE 9.3 update on the action plan for single use, but we do have 3 motions that have been advance circulated. So if there's no questions or speakers, we can just vote on those motions and release the item.
No, I'll have questions on that for sure.
No, and I do as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. Councillor Bravo, quick release.
Thank you, Speaker. I understand from Councillor Cheng she no longer wishes to ask questions in relation to this, and I just want to say...
Which item?
EC 810, growth and expansion of Toronto's licensed childcare sector.
Okay.
Just to say, it's a reaffirming of Toronto's commitment to quality public and not-for-profit affordable childcare. We're convening a roundtable, which I'll be sharing with the childcare stakeholders, and I want to thank all of them who showed up at the meeting and have helped to create the recommendations in this report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bravo is releasing EC 8.10 on favor. Show of hands carried. Thank you. Councillor Fletcher.
Yes, Speaker, I believe I did try to release PH 8.5, city-initiated zoning bylaw amendments to implement Ontario Line final report earlier, and I had sent a motion to the clerk, so maybe they have that now.
Do we have
Yes.
that motion? Yes, we do.
To defer that to February.
Okay, there it is on the screen, Councillor
you.
Fletcher.
That is it, moving that.
So you're deferring it into the February
That
council
is
meeting?
right. Thank
Okay. On PH 8.5, Councillor Fletcher has the motion on the screen to defer. On favor. Carried. Thank you. Councillor Perks.
Did you get your motions?
Councillor Perks?
I have no motions. I'm just releasing something.
Oh, sorry, that's what I mean, yeah.
Yes,
Quick release.
I would like to release PH 8.3, Housing Action Plan Zoning Bylaw Simplification and Modernization for Low-Rise Residential Zones Phase 1
I
Final
have
Report.
questions on it.
Okay, so we'll continue holding. So,
I'm trying to wear them out.
okay. Are there any
Not gonna
further?
happen.
Okay, so I just want to remind members of council, all members of council, that we only go to 3:30 tomorrow. So if you have any questions, please ask maybe offline questions, because otherwise the agenda would be deferred to February. Okay, so keep that in mind.
Speaker,
Yes.
may I make a point of, I don't know if it's a point of order or privilege at this hour, but I will comment that the majority of today was taken up with 2 motions that were walked on today. So I wonder if there can be a closing of the agenda. I'm not even sure if that's procedurally allowed.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right, we're going to go home soon. Okay, may I have a motion to introduce a confirmatory bill? Councillor Candeval, you can do your first.
Okay, great.
Can you read it?
It's not on the screen. That leave be granted to introduce bills to conform to the point of introduction of this motion, the proceedings of City Council Meeting 13 on December 13 and 14, 2023.
Okay. On favor? On favor, show of hands. Opposed, if any, carried. Shall leave be granted to introduce these bills? All in favor, show of hands, opposed if any, carried. Shall these bills be declared as bylaws and be passed subject to Section 226.9 of the City of Toronto Act 2006? All in favor, show of hands. Okay, we're recessed to 9:30 tomorrow. Thank you to staff, all the staff that are here, and thank you to members of council.